Welcome to the WNBF UK podcast.
Hello and welcome back to season 3 of the WNBF UK podcast with me, Sarah Glanville, as your host. We are back for episode 7 today, and our guest is someone I am delighted to have sit down with me for an in-depth conversation. He stood out on our first timer stage last month and competed for the very first time. He went on not only to win our men's physique overall title, but he was awarded the very first pro card ever to be given out on our first timers championship stage. Welcome to the podcast, Kojo Boateng. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Thank you, Sarah. That was a really warm introduction. I'm good. I cannot complain. I'm very steeped in natural bodybuilding building culture right now. So I'm sort of feeling immersed in my prep, which is quite nice.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm going to out myself, Kojo. This is the second time we've done this. So we recorded this a while back and I had a tech malfunction. So thank you so much for coming back on and doing this again. I know from the quality of conversation last time, we're going to have a really good chat. I think it's a couple of weeks since we last spoke, and I think you were still probably in a bit of a glow after the show when we spoke. So maybe this is even better because you've had a chance to kind of process things.
I might have had like residual tan and stuff. So it was a super fresh. It's probably a good thing we're speaking now as well, because I can put together sentences and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, great. So let's start the podcast and give everyone a picture about who you are and where you've come from. So do you want to tell us a bit about, I guess, your training history and what initially sparked your interest in natural bodybuilding?
Yeah. So I grew up in South Africa. I was born in London here in the UK, and then my family left when I was about 2. So I grew up we moved to Kenya when I was 2, and then we moved to Zambia for like 9 months, and then by the time I was 4, we were living in South Africa. So I grew up there, and I've been kind of immersed in sports culture my whole life. I mean, if you've been to South Africa, if you know South Africans, I mean, everyone in the southern hemisphere, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, we're just like obsessed with sports and with physical culture as well. So growing up, it was very normal to see adults, training, going to the gym, taking their health quite seriously. And I was very lucky to play team sports from a very young age. I think my first rugby team, we must have been like 7 or something. And I don't think you should let 7-year-olds play rugby, but everything in SA was just highly competitive in the late 90s. And I saw some shit. Can I say that on?
Drop the F-bomb. It's fine.
And, by the time I got to high school, I was playing rugby fairly competitively. I mean, I wasn't like going to make the national team or anything, but I played against kids who did make the national team, and you were kind of really seeing the heights of athleticism at the natural level, quite young, and obviously that was quite inspiring to me. But I also began training. I would say I began training when I was about 12. So my mum dragged me to the gym. She started training with a trainer friend of hers. She was going through a really rough time, and we had been through like a transition as a family. I think she had switched jobs, and she had a very high pressure job she was in, as did my dad. And so there was just a lot going on. I had just changed schools. And so she used to drive me to the gym, and I used to just come with her, and she would insist that I just sort of sit there and sulk, because that's what I used to do. And then eventually I said, let me just sort of tag along, see what's up, and began following along when I was 12, 13. And I realized I really enjoyed it. And so I started training a little bit more formally in high school. We had a high school PE teacher called Mr. Shuttleworth, Tony Shuttleworth. I don't know if I said this last time, but he was iconic when it came to introducing us to the squat, bench, deadlift as teenagers. And the first thing he did was calculate our fat-free mass index when we were like 14. And, objections aside, as intense as that was, like he basically, introduced me and a bunch of my friends to the world of just weightlifting. And so I began lifting, not with a fully formed program, and pretty stupidly, like every teenager does, in high school. And that just continued all through college. I think in undergrad, I became a bit more serious about my lifting, and I realized that there were certain goals that I had, certain body weight objectives that I had. But one thing is I've just always just loved to lift, and I've just always trained. I mean, I've trained through several different phases of my life and my work life and personal. So yeah, but that's where it began, basically. Yeah.
Amazing. So were you using the gym training once you got into the gym, I guess? Was that to supplement your sports performance and the different sports that you were taking part in?
Yes, it was. I mean, I just honestly, genuinely, we were encouraged to lift weights in high school, but I genuinely didn't want to get hurt. And the boys that I was playing rugby, and I used to row, the kids that I used to row and play rugby against were just genetic machines. It didn't make sense. I don't know if you've ever met like, I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, you look at the South African rugby team and it all makes sense, you know, and genetically, I mean, I think I have pretty decent genetics, but I think, you know, at that age, you know, I didn't hit a growth spurt till I was basically pre-college age. So I was like a shrimp running around the rugby field, and the training gave me a certain level of confidence to sort of carry myself in a certain way and not get injured. So I would say it was more about resilience at that age than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. And when did you start building an awareness of natural bodybuilding as a sport? So you like the gym, but when did that connection happen?
I think, truthfully, it probably happened around 2014. I was about to graduate from undergrad, and I was living in Ireland at the time. And I had been, and again, no shade to people who are in the whole keto, paleo, CrossFit universe, but that's the sort of training I was doing for a number of years, and I was very low carb. And I just hit a wall with my training and with my growth, and I just felt like aesthetically, I was training so damn hard, and I was putting my everything into my nutrition as well, but I just felt so restricted. I had a real fear of, you know, carbohydrates and, you know, insulin, stuff like that. And I came across a forum on the old bodybuilding.com when it was like the only source for information. And Lane Norton had a whole forum on like evidence-based fitness, and I did one of his programs, and then through that I ended up actually discovering Team 3DMJ, who are like kind of these world-renowned, you know, natural bodybuilding prep service. And yeah, and I just got in touch with them, and I downloaded their Muscle and Strength Pyramid series books, and I just sort of devoured those, you know, within a matter of like days, and essentially set up a program based on their volume, intensity, and frequency recommendations back in the day. And I had a few trainer friends in college as well, so like they helped me kind of tweak it. They were a bit older and sort of knew what they were doing. And I realized that, you know, it is possible for people to compete without taking tons of drugs. And I think that's something that really opened my eyes up, because truthfully, it's something that I'd always been interested in, but even growing up, the people that I knew who competed were all in the IFBB, and or they were people who got to that level in South Africa, who had, you know, health consequences as a result. That was back then. So yeah, I think it really just piqued my interest, and I realized that I didn't have to complicate my life, and I could just sort of keep up with some healthy habits as well. So yeah.
Yeah, great. Sounds like finding natural bodybuilding and the evidence-based side of the sport
Yeah.
brought you back, I guess, from a quite an unhealthy relationship with food and exercise. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. And I mean, it was around the time that like IFYM, flexible dieting, started to take off. So people, you know, created these sort of bastardized versions where you ate cake and then had a piece of broccoli at dinner and you like met your macros. So, you know, obviously I did that for like a couple of years and I got great results. But then I, you know, of course, got a bit more serious, and I had a nutrition coaching service helped me at the time called Avatar Nutrition, and they're still around today, and they run an amazing service, and it's very personalized. So I got to talk to some of the founders at the time, and like they just helped me again learn a bit more about the sports performance side of things as well. So yeah, education really. I think it was just a like relentless pursuit of educating myself, because I realized how ignorant I was, and I just hated putting all this effort in and getting nothing out of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think you're probably not the only one that's faced that frustration or a journey like that. And it's fantastic that you've been able to access the resources to educate yourself and fall in love with training again and you know finding enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what led you to decide to compete now? If you've kind of known about natural bodybuilding since 2014, what made you decide that the WNBF UK First Timers Championships this year was the time?
I think so. Obviously, timing comes into it. I had this conversation with my coach, Madeline Daniels, a few months ago, and I mean, obviously, she was a massive inspiration to me. She is a renowned and very highly accomplished physique athlete in her own right. She is a natural IFBB pro. She's someone who competed in women's wellness a few years ago and actually won her title. I'm pretty sure competing against enhanced athletes. And so she was very instrumental in just sort of encouraging me. We'd been working together for just under a year at the time, or was it like 8 months? I remember. And I, I kept saying that I'd wanted to compete. And I mean, I actually set up to do a prep in 2020 when I used to live in the US. And I reached out to a coaching service at the time, had a few friends who were willing to like go through prep with me. And then the pandemic hit, so I was like, I'm not going to maintain stage weight through COVID. I'll die in my apartment and no one will know that I'm here. Like that's terrible. So I didn't do that. But I think I've gone through several periods and cycles of wanting to compete in the past, and I just haven't done it because my life just felt like it was in a state of transition. I was either studying or I was going to move. There've been periods where, my health wasn't the best, and I just felt like it didn't make sense to step on stage. But I kept saying to myself that, the more I put it off, the more I'm gonna more likely come into it as, a masters athlete, which is absolutely fine. But I didn't want my first time to be, as a masters athlete. I wanted to see what I could do when I was a little bit younger and kind of grow into the sport. And so, yeah, I would say the decision was made in January. I had a pretty, rough year last year, just a lot of crazy work shenanigans. And at one point I was going to leave the UK and I didn't. And just like, a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. And earlier this year, I think a part of me just said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And so Maddie and I created a plan. I was in Ghana for like a month visiting family, and then I got back in February. And we were thinking through federations, and pretty much everyone that I've ever learned anything about, fitness, health, and effective sort of sports performance nutrition, and even programming, is or was or is related to a WNBF Pro. So it just became something where I was like, I've been hearing about this federation for years. I know what the people at the top of this federation are capable of, and it seemed like the WNBF really values education as well. So yeah, it was pretty simple for me. It was either that or spend even more time not competing and thinking through where am I going to go, and then probably not even doing it. So yeah, that's how the decision came to be made.
It's hard, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
picking the right time to go when you want to, but there's always something that's, I guess, feels like a barrier or feels like an additional layer of challenge. And I think, like you've said,
Yeah.
actually you were having a rough time and it was something that gave you, I guess, a bit of direction or a bit of focus. And
Yeah.
I think that there's different, you know when it's the right time and when it's the right time to focus into that challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And truthfully, if I'd competed maybe, 10 years ago, or realistically, if I'd competed maybe, 7 or 8 years ago when I really wanted to and had that fire in me, I think I would have been a pretty immature athlete. I think I would have probably competed with the sole purpose of getting a placing. I probably would have been, I don't want to say more competitive, but I would have let the competitiveness kind of drive the process a bit too early in the career. And I just feel like I wouldn't have been as mature an athlete because I just didn't have enough life happen to me, to be honest. And I mean, when you're 21, you think you know everything, you know what I mean? So not all 21-year-olds are like that. I was amazed to like see at the show, like some people are just super mature. But when I was 21, I mean, I don't know, painting my name in rocks or something. So I just want I think I didn't have the mindset to cope with loss and to cope with the potential of getting on stage and actually feeling quite uncomfortable, So I just wanted to see if I actually liked it. And I think that's why I chose to do it this time. Yeah.
I think that it sounds like for you, you've made absolutely the right decision to,
Yeah.
I guess, hold off and know yourself well enough to know that maybe things weren't quite in the right place until now.
Yeah.
That leads us into a really nice conversation then about your approach to the mental aspect of competing. I guess what kind of mindset did you bring to your prep and to competition day?
Yeah. So prep I thought was actually a lot of fun. I have told other competitive friends this, some enhanced, some natural, but I've just been sharing how much fun I've been having on these preps. And the first time I did it, obviously, which was, a few months ago, I just loved like kind of leaning into habits that I already had, leaning into practices that I already did, but in a way that was more, I felt like I had an excuse to do more of that and to do it
Yep.
with a slightly higher intensity. And so my family, my friends just kind of left me alone. And it was kind of nice. I'm not saying I don't like people, but it was very freeing being able to focus on a very big goal. That felt a bit ambiguous because I hadn't competed before. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. But there was a bit of a nervous energy to it, but it was doing stuff that I enjoy. I've always enjoyed lifting. Lifting has been like something that has taken me away from, very stressful work situations during periods where I haven't had a lot of work-life balance. And like the hour and a half I had at lunch is like the only time I have to like just be by myself listening to stuff I want to listen to. And so I got to lean into a lot of that stuff. And the difficult aspects of prep, I think I decided to compete and do that also because I wanted to experience that hardship for myself. I'm a big believer in, like that whole principle of iron sharpening iron. So I knew that it would get difficult at points, and I wanted to see where, like my genetics could take me and where my mental resilience could take me as well. And I trust my coach, and I know Maddie wasn't going to do something, give me an utterly stupid plan and make me eat just like tilapia and carrots for 9 months. So I knew that she wasn't gonna like destroy my body, So I had faith in her ability to program smartly, and she did. And we have a very iterative relationship. So she does something, and I ask her, why did you do that? I'm just curious, and she tells me why, and we talk. And if she doesn't know something, she tells me she doesn't know something, and we say, cool, let's back off, let's try a different approach. And yeah, I just enjoyed it. Yeah, I feel like I didn't answer the question. I have no idea, but yeah.
You answered it. You answered it perfectly. I think you're a very like mature athlete. Like I think that's what we get across from what you've said there is like you really know why you're prepping, you know why you were wanting to compete, and it's very important for you to understand like what it is that you're doing. And I think that you see almost like a little bit of a science experiment on yourself, maybe to a point. And I think that that's such a refreshing way to think about it and to look at it. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you've had such a positive first experience with prep, because it's, as you said, maybe if you've been speaking to people and they've not felt it's something that they've had. And that's a shame because there's so many positives that you can take from the prep experience, I think.
Exactly. And there's so many factors that factor into bodybuilding, whether you're enhanced or natural, that have an underlying genetic component. Something that I realized very quickly is that obviously not everyone can get stage lean, and that's okay. In the same way that when I was younger, I just wanted to be a footballer. I think every little boy wants to be a footballer, especially if you grow up on the African continent. Like if you're not Lionel, if you don't turn into Messi, you failed, so that's what you wanted to be. And my grandfather was a really good footballer, and he had an opportunity to come and play in the Premier League here back in the day. He decided not to take it. So I feel like that was a monumental injustice to the family legacy. I don't know. All right. R.I.P. We love him. But he had the ability to play that sport at a very high level, and but he was built very differently from me. He looked completely different. So something about prep is that it teaches you that there's an element of chance to a lot of what we do here, and you have to be comfortable with that. The physique that I bring at the end of the year could be miles better than what I brought the first time. But I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know what their genetic lineage is. I don't know what their, how their response to their training is. There's a lot I don't know. So you become quite comfortable with the unknown. And I think that's a bigger life lesson more so in all of this. So.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said that better. That's exactly what it is. How did you find the approach of the actual competition day, and I guess the idea of competition? Sounds like you're very much thinking about your own journey and what you're getting from it, but it is a competition at the end of the day. So how did that part of your mental planning or a mental aspect come into play?
So I just kind of challenged myself on the day privately. I don't think I shared with my coach, but I just sort of challenged myself privately to just keep my shit together. I told myself, to take it all in as a form of inspiration to push me. I'm very fortunate in that, if I see a great physique on social media, now there's a much greater likelihood that I'll, maybe see, who we have mutually in common. I might send a message to ask a question. I may or may not like a post, but it's not going to really bring me down because I know that I'm built differently. I know that I look different. I know that I have a different training history. I'm a different person. You know what I mean? That might change, and maybe I'm feeling slightly more competitive, and maybe I'm feeling insecure. But on the day of competition, just showed up wanting to learn. And I think that I upheld that promise to myself. So I didn't really show up with this I better place or else everyone's there. And I just I showed up wanting to enjoy my day actually. And something that my mom and I don't know, really good friends were telling me as well, including a few friends who compete in South Africa. Really good friend of mine called Dev, who's a very successful athlete himself. People like that had just been telling me to just enjoy it, and not put this pressure on myself to perform or have an expectation. The only expectation I did have is I went in just wanting to remember everything that I'd learned. So obviously posing is key. Very early on, I realized that, again, had I competed 8 years ago, I probably wouldn't have put as much emphasis into my posing. I would have thought to myself, maybe we feel like we've built a substantial amount of muscle mass. That's good enough. If you feel like you're one of the biggest people there, great. But that takes away from the artistry of the sport. You know what I mean? So on the day, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the art, the practice, the craft. And everyone was super warm and welcoming. And I mean, you were lovely as well backstage. And I didn't feel like a big thing for me looking back is I didn't feel like when Steph announced that I'd turned pro and when I got the overall, I genuinely didn't feel like the treatment changed substantially. And that was huge for me because, you sometimes are in environments where maybe you're given an accolade or something happens or a project is successful, and people in the office and or people you're around treat the winners very differently from the way they treat everyone else. And I didn't notice that. And that was really, really nice for me, just kind of seeing. And then seeing athletes as well and meeting athletes who didn't place, because not everyone, on the day won something. But still seeing how overwhelmingly positive it was for them and becoming friends with some of them or with a lot of people like that. And just sort of realizing that at the end of the day, we all do it for an internal reason. And you should at the end of the day. I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't, you'll have an awful experience, because if you don't get a trophy or a medal or whatever, you'll sort of come home feeling like you wasted your time. And that's not what you want. So yeah. Long tangent.
No, really, really spot on. I think it's so hard because different things motivate different people, right? So some people are very competitively driven. So the reason that they want to do this at all is because they want to win something or they want to be seen as successful at something. And I'm a very competitive person, but I would say I came into my prep with a very similar mindset to you.
Yeah.
And you're sacrificing months of your time towards something. You're giving up a lot of social events or your participation. You can't be fully participating in a social event. You might be there in person, but you're not there in spirit. And there's a lot that you give up, and that challenge the people around you, I suppose, through that whole journey as well to get to show day.
Yeah.
And you don't want to walk away from that experience looking the best you've ever looked, in the best physical condition that you've been in, after having made all these sacrifices and feeling like you've let yourself down or that you've let other people down.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that what you said is spot on. I'm really glad that you mentioned kind of the overall show day experience, and I guess I would I'd love for you to elaborate on that a little bit more. Obviously, it was your first time competing, so was the day what you expected? Was actually competing what you expected? Do you want to talk about that part of your experience?
So something that was really funny and almost awkward for me was just how natural it felt being on stage. Growing up, I mean, I don't know, I went growing up, I used to do like school plays, and I used to love, like just playing the fool and being under bright lights and embarrassing my family. And then, going in college, I did like I did a bit of drama school as well. And so I've always loved kind of theatrics and entertainment and that sort of that whole world. But I had assumed being on stage would be pretty nerve-wracking, given that, we're blending artistry with a passion for lifting and a passion for in the natural federations generally, a passion for kind of our health and elevating the sport in a way that doesn't require enhancements. And so I thought that when I got on stage the first time, I'd feel pretty nervous just because of the pressure that I put on myself to perform.
Yeah.
But truthfully, on the day, I was pretty relaxed, and the environment for me was pretty calming, given that every single person that I went out of my way to talk to, everyone who went out of their way to talk to me, was just so nice, and not in a phony way. I really did feel like people were there because they wanted to be, and everyone had been dieting for months and or training pretty seriously for months. There were obviously people there who hadn't been training for a long time and just wanted to showcase what they had built. And there was a certain level of respect that I felt people had for each other, which I liked. And truthfully, I think I was lucky in that everyone I spoke to was just so warm and just so kind. And even those people who were like outrageously nervous didn't let that nervous energy spoil the experience for other people, which was quite noticeable as well. I mean, I've been to like athletic events or sporting events where you're playing for like a finals cup, or you're doing something pretty competitive and physical, and a member of the opposing team is getting coffee, and you see them or whatever, and they just say something really shitty just because they want to get that whole like Schwarzenegger psychological warfare out of the way. And there was none of that. There was honestly none of that. I think there was maybe one person that I met who was like, dude, I'm so hungry and I hate this. And I was like, are you going to compete again? He was like, no. And I was like, at least you showed up and like you followed through. So if you hate it, it's not for you, but yeah, I had had a pretty authentic experience. I think I'm very lucky, obviously, with everything that happened, but because that is not the norm. But yeah, truthfully, even if I didn't place, I had a very, very positive experience, and I would definitely have been back. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love speaking to people who've competed at first timers specifically. I think I get this from anyone who competes with WNBF UK, but specifically after the first timers show, and people are like genuinely overwhelmed by the supportive experience backstage and the other competitors. And I guess it's hard to put a finger on what it is that makes it that environment. For me, it's everyone who supports the running of the federation backstage or on the judges table, drug testing. Everyone in the team tends to be a natural bodybuilder themselves, or very, very close to the sport in some way. Matt, the drug tester, he has never competed himself, but he supports his wife Natalie, who competes, and he drug tests every show just because he loves being there for her, which is amazing. But I feel people are there for the right reasons, and that carries over, and people are supportive, and they want to give everyone an experience that's memorable and is fitting of their first day on stage. And it's just lovely when the athletes also come with that that attitude that they want to network and make connections and learn from each other. Yeah,
and I think you should. I think that's the right attitude to have, because truthfully, there's so many like gold nuggets of knowledge everywhere. I mean, I had a conversation with the muscle tan team, not everyone, but I mean some of the people who were tanning me, and I was just kind of like, you guys have seen some shit, haven't you? Like, yeah, kind of fill me in on stuff that they've seen. But there are lessons everywhere, and I think truthfully, I think being open-minded, like you said, and having that attitude, it does help, because you know, even, I don't know, I mean, people who follow the Olympia and just sort of follow the lives of athletes and people like Chris Bumstead, I mean, I've met people who are on his marketing team, and truthfully, a lot of these people just approach everything that they do as if they're still first timers, you know, because they want to learn and become better, and then they show up more competitive every year or whatever. But it's not because their focus is just on being the best. I mean, you know, what makes them the best is the way that they learn. So that's something that I think was kind of new to me as well.
Yeah. And I think that's like there's so many lessons that you have in bodybuilding that
Yeah,
you can apply to so many other aspects of your life.
for
And
sure.
I think that's definitely one of them. So you've said the word lucky like 100 times to describe your show day, and you've said, you talked about genetics and everything like that, but did you have any part of you at all that had imagined that you could do as well as you did on that first show? Like, was that ever in your mind at all?
So my main category was classic physique, just because that's the category that I genuinely grew up watching. And so
Yep.
I was like, yeah, I got to get the trunks, do all that stuff. I just wanted to see if I had what it took for both classic and men's physique. Men's physique was the category that I registered for as my secondary category because it was more aspirational. I said to myself, do you know, I may not even look good in these ball shorts. I'm just going to get them because they look so damn cool. And I just want to see what I look like on stage. And I want to see if I can hit the poses because I've always felt like I'm not very flexible. And, you know, even, I mean, I've been kicked out of a yoga class before because like I cursed, you know, I just couldn't do something and I got upset. When I was like 22. So had I competed then, it wouldn't have been good. But I basically felt like I wanted to challenge myself to enter a category like men's physique, which was a bit more alien to me. So a part of me thinks I put a bit more emphasis into the posing there because I was afraid. I think I genuinely didn't want to get on stage and look like a tit. I wanted to like feel comfortable, you know. But I had a great time learning the poses and just sort of taking myself through the mental gymnastics of like both categories. But I don't know, I didn't imagine that I hadn't gone in expecting to place, but I hadn't gone in expecting to do very poorly because I knew the amount of effort that I'd put into like everything, you know, the posing, whatever. And I knew that if I applied myself the way that I've applied myself to other things in my life, that have taken a lot of energy, but that have paid off, I knew I could do something, but I didn't, I genuinely didn't, I didn't expect anything on the level of what ended up happening, you know. And so, yeah, when it happened, I genuinely did feel quite overwhelmed for like a month. I think I was fielding a lot of questions from like, at least my community. And my mom was like, oh my God, does this mean I have to like go back to the gym now? Because everyone's gonna be like, you're not even as fit as your son. And I'm like, Mom, you've always been in the gym, like just chill. But yeah, it was very surprising. And I think I'm still coming to acceptance, like with what happened, because of the fact that, you know, my initial intention was to compete, see if I liked it. I knew I'd probably like it, and just keep showing up maybe once every couple years, and hopefully become a pro in my 40s. Like that was my plan, you know. But I never planned on, you know, coming in, doing this show, doing that, and then becoming a pro this way, because most people that I've spoken to who are pros in this federation and others, it took them a very long time, you know. And I guess I showed up, and you know, there were certain factors that worked in my favor. But yeah, I definitely can't say that when I showed up, I expected something big to happen. I just didn't. I literally thought I'd show up and there'd probably be like 5 Samoan guys there, and I'd be like, okay, well, I may as well go home. But it was, yeah, it was really awesome, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, firstly, I don't think any of us expected the pro card being handed out that day. Like, it's never like that's
Yeah.
so unprecedented, and I think that anyone listening
Yeah.
needs to remember that. Like, it's never happened before. I don't know if it'll happen again. Like, there will hopefully be pro worthy physiques. I'm sure there will be at Supernaturals, but at a first timer show, that's just unheard of within WNBF UK. Secondly, things worked in your favor, but you did turn up with a pro-worthy physique. Like, anyone who's seen the pictures of you, Kojo, on the day, like, stand out. absolutely phenomenal, and just so exciting to see that even the, the challenge for how good that whole class, good the whole overall men's physique class was, you battling it out. Incredible standard across the board, but
Yeah.
fantastic to see a pro worthy physique on a first timer stage. How are you feeling coming into the pro ranks? Because obviously you've literally done a show. So
Yeah,
how
I feel like I've done nothing. Yeah, that's a really good question. So, again, that first month, I had a mixture of, stress, good stress, expectations that I placed on myself, and then obviously feeling a bit overwhelmed with everything that had happened and the pace at which it happened. But truthfully, the more I've thought about it and just speaking to my coach and people that are very close to me, my feeling now is that, I mean, there is one huge advantage, which is that I started at, we all start at the bottom somewhere in terms of a pro ranking, whatever. And I started at the bottom as a first time amateur. This thing happened, and I'm going into a pro show. And many people say, oh, when you turn pro, because usually by the time it happens, you have achieved a certain level of something within your federation. And then by the time you're pro and you've qualified at nationals or whatever, you sort of start again internationally, and you're now in the pro ranks. I never climbed, so it's like it's kind of cool because I don't feel this crazy pressure to maintain a title that I had, but I also I really want to just maintain that sense of like wanting to learn, keeping that at the forefront, being experience and process driven, because it is a whole experience. And I mean, me getting on a pro stage for the first time at the end of the year, it's a thrill, but it's something that I will only get to do once, So I want to really soak up that experience in the healthiest way possible. And to be frank, many people had like written to me, and a few people had asked me if it had like gone to my head, and I was just like, dude, you know me, and realistically, if this had gone into my head, I probably would have gone into hiding because I would have felt like this crazy imposter syndrome, But that didn't happen because I do love this sport, and it's something that if I'm going to become a better competitor, I need the exposure being a first timer on a pro stage, So now that will happen, it's an opportunity to just kind of learn, and it'll be pretty cool just standing up there. And I don't know, if worlds did end up happening, I would end up in a position where like I'm standing on stage with people that I have looked up to for a very long time, and I'll probably like freak out on stage, not in a bad way, but just in a way that's embarrassing to myself. And that's absolutely fine, but it's like getting the exposure, having the experience, and then moving on from there. So yeah, that's the mindset that I'm trying to adopt.
I think that's the best way that you could be, absorbing what's happening and moving forward. And the last thing I kind of want to touch on with what you said there was around, you having a real respect for the journey that for a lot of naturals, it takes a long time to get that pro status, and pro status, sorry, and it's something that people will be aspiring to for a long time. It's lovely to hear how humble you are. It's lovely to hear it, but I'm very excited to see you step on the pro stage, and I think it sounds like you and Maddie have got a great plan to bring you into the end of the year, and I'm excited to see the level up. And even just you getting a chance to step back out on stage, having had such a positive experience the first time, loving it, but again with like it not being your first, it's still not your first time again, right? So you've got a little bit less of the unknown, and you can really settle in and enjoy it. I'm excited to see how that goes for you.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it'll be, thank you. I think it'll be again, it'll be a thrill, but it'll be something that is pretty cool because I know what to expect as far as what my body can give me at certain periods of time. Obviously, like my peak week may not even be the same, things may change. But at least environmentally, I know what to expect, and I'm trying my best to just kind of make things work in my favor again. But yeah, we're all here to kind of learn at the end of the day, and just compete, but then ultimately beat the previous versions of ourselves. So that's what I want to do.
Absolutely. So I think I've got two questions left for you. I want to end on what your plans are for the rest of the year and everything like that. So I'm going to take a slight detour first and ask you about your choice to stay as a natural athlete. So you've obviously chosen to train and to compete as a natural athlete your whole life.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's been a very conscious choice. So what made you make that choice, and what does it mean to you to have stayed natural through your training history?
I think the biggest factor for me is health. I mean, obviously, when we step on stage and the weeks leading up to stage day, show day, we are not our healthiest. Obviously, your body's in a pretty vulnerable state. You're very food focused. Even your joints may be a bit creaky. Like body fat is just such an essential hormone regulator. So we go into the sport with an understanding that it's not the healthiest state we're ever going to be in. But it's temporary, and the physique is temporary, and it's for a purpose. The idea to me of doing all of that, but on PEDs, just seems so complicated. And truthfully, I don't know a lot about PEDs. And the stuff that I do know, having also just, having a lot of friends who do use PEDs, who do compete at very high levels, having met people who compete at high levels who are on PEDs, there are a lot of psychological and individual factors to consider that can be quite damaging if you're not well educated in the sport. But even if you are well educated in the sport, it's important to consider how you respond to PEDs. I mean, like Dr. Mike from Renaissance Periodization, he, obviously runs, I think, the best fitness channel on YouTube, but he has become very open about what PEDs as a elite competitor have done to his mind, as far as making him a much more anxious person, a little bit more socially awkward. He's very vulnerable about that. And a lot of the community have been bashing him recently for speaking these things into being, because a lot of younger people who maybe want to compete, who think the only way to become, to do that is to become Chris Bumstead, and no shade to them, but Chris Bumstead has a very specific set of genetics. He can handle compounds. He's also friggin' rich, and he has, the ability to see the best doctors who can tailor the compounds to him. And when he competes, there's certain compounds he doesn't take at certain times because they will make him a worse person, And a lot of the Gen Pop don't understand that you need to go in with a very informed approach when you're going to take PEDs. And so for me, the trade-offs just aren't worth it. It's not even just the complexity. It's the fact that as a natural, you get to kind of make gains over time, but there are a lot of lessons that come with that. That is something that I now realize in retrospect, kind of looking back. But even that being said, the natural community I found is very, as I said, very education driven. There's a lot more evidence-based stuff going on that leads to better results, and much healthier mindsets around competing and physique alteration that a lot of enhanced federations just don't have. I mean, I look at some of the content that enhanced coaches put out. Again, not all of them are like that. I mean, John Jewett, who runs a prep service for athletes going to the Olympia, he's very evidence-based. But again, if we're looking overall, it's much more difficult to navigate the sport as an enhanced athlete in that community than it is as a natural, because as a natural, we have to be paying a little bit more attention to certain aspects of how we become conditioned. And to do that, you need adherence. And to be adherent, we can't rely on a compound. And so we have to kind of show up, a little bit differently. Not saying we work harder, because that's just not true. But it's just different, and to me, it's not worth maybe making a mistake that could ultimately jeopardize my health. Whereas as a natural, maybe the fix is like, go and have a hamburger, you'll feel fine, instead of, I gave myself a little bit too much insulin, and now I'm I can't breathe properly for 2 weeks. I'd much rather think things through in like a very holistic way. And the trade-offs just aren't worth it to me. And then I think aesthetically, there's some things that I like about natural bodybuilding that maybe as an enhanced athlete, I would struggle with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really well thought out answer. And clearly, you've put a lot of consideration into your decision. And I think that I completely agree with everything that you've said there. I also think that you've touched on it, and you touched on it actually earlier when you were talking about, seeing yourself maybe turning pro as a masters competitor.
Yeah.
There's just so much more longevity
Yeah.
of natural bodybuilding.
It
There's so
is,
much more opportunity to continue to compete well into your. We've got competitors in their 50s and their 60s who are coming back competing at Supernaturals, and I think it's just so. It's lovely to see that journey through, and you've got people stepping on stage for the first time as a 15 or 16 year old, and on the same day there's a 65-year-old stepping on stage, and that's the opportunity that's there for you as a natural competitor. And on the enhanced side of the sport, I just don't think it's the same.
It's not the same. And the people in the enhanced side who are that age who are still competing, I think about like I forgot to forget this guy's name. I'm trying to get him in. There are people like that, but there are very few of them because, to be frank, at that level, a lot of them die, and that's something that we now realize. And it's just the cold hard facts. The body can only handle so much when it comes to supporting extra tissue, an enlarged heart, and extra muscle mass. The tendons don't keep up the same way that the muscle does.
Yeah.
So as a natural athlete, it's so inspiring to me. I've been listening to podcasts with like Jeff Alberts, from 3DMJ since forever, and I think he turns 53 this year, and he did Worlds a couple of years ago, and there are tons of people like that in the WNBF, who have full lives, rich lives. They've been competing for decades, and they keep improving because they keep bettering their condition whenever they come to stage. And that's something that, if you're enhanced, is extremely difficult to do. And at that point, if you're still alive and you're still able to even lift, you have really damn good genetics, and or you have a great doctor and a set of compounds that just work for you. We're very lucky in that way.
Yeah, it's a dice you throw, I suppose, to see how it works for you. But the masters competitors, it's just phenomenal to see the maturity in the muscle, and then the ability to bring condition as well, because the muscle's so mature. There's like a granular look to just fantastic. So I'm another reason to keep an eye on you, Kojo, is to see as you continue to progress and you have this long career in the sport, how phenomenal your physique will become on top of where it already is. It's just so exciting. So looking forward to the end of the year, then we have let the cat out of the bag through the episode that you'll be competing at the end of the year. So I think last time we spoke, you were still weighing things up. So what's led you to decide that you're going to push on for the first pro show at the end of the year?
I don't know. I feel like prep. It's gonna be a really weird answer. I feel like my first prep made me a nicer person, and it sounds really weird, but I just feel like I met so many interesting people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, even before I came to the show, just because people in my immediate community who I didn't tell I was doing a show. I didn't announce that I was doing a show to the whole world. I only kind of decided to be a bit more conscious about kind of telling my friends and my family that a few weeks before I competed, just because a part of me was like, dude, just, use this as an opportunity to kind of build up a little bit of confidence as you step on stage. I think what changed is that I realized what the last prep did for me mentally, and the benefits that I reaped having just delivered the final product to stage, followed through on that big promise to myself, and being given the opportunity to step on a pro stage within the same season and the same competitive year is something that doesn't really happen again. So, I spoke to my family about it. I think I might have mentioned it last time. I spoke to my family about it as well. And my dad was like, yeah, okay, you seem kind of nervous. What's the problem? And I said to him, well, there's the opportunity to step on a pro stage in October, and I just became pro, and it was my first show. And he was like, so what's the problem? And I was like, that's the problem. And he was like, there is no problem. You're literally creating a barrier for yourself. I just decided that wasn't worth it. And truthfully, if I am going to take a little bit of time off to recover, it'll be after this year. But there's an immense opportunity to just, come back at the end of the year and actually try and, improve my conditioning and a little bit of what the technique looked like within the same calendar year, which I think is a tremendous opportunity to grow. And if I do take time off, it's not like those lessons are going to kind of fade. I'll have that. So that I think is what changed. And yeah, my family just basically, I'm not going to say shaming me because they weren't shaming me, but they were like, you know, if you don't do it, you will regret it. And they're completely right, you know. So yeah. I'll be asking what if, and obviously waiting however long in an off season. So yeah, I think now's the right time to try.
I love your dad. He just called you on it.
Yeah, he was like, why are you hesitating? And I told him, and I was like, yeah, I'm a bit nervous. And he was like, sounds like excuses to me, and nearly hung up. So I was like, okay, that's fine. No, he's not a tiger parent. He just he does love me. Yeah.
But I think he knows. I think he knows you as well, and he knows that maybe if you'd stepped back, you would go, oh, "What if I just done that? What if I just got it out of the way and tried it and seen how it went?" So
yeah, exactly.
Great. So, what was your feedback after first timers? Although you were phenomenal, everyone gets feedback. So, what was the suggestions to tweak your condition until the end of the year?
So the judge feedback that I got, the majority of it was focused around conditioning. Even going in, I had said to myself that I want to be better conditioned next time. I believe that, you know, for men's physique, obviously the level of conditioning is slightly different. But at the pro level, there is a certain standard that I would like to meet personally. I just feel like stepping on stage, you want to feel that you did everything you could. You want to feel proud of being as close to the division criteria as possible. And even if, you know, in terms of muscularity and shape, even if I, you know, feel that I'm pretty close to that, I think condition is what ultimately makes or breaks a pro physique. So just based on my own observations as well and conversations with my coach and the judges, I would like to become a much smoother poser and much better at my posing and my transitions. That is something that came up as well. And again, I think there were a lot of very kind comments. I think a lot of the judges were quite surprised at the level of energy and perhaps like vigor that I brought to the stage. But again, I don't know if that was fear or if that was me just not wanting to like mess up everything that I'd been working towards. But you know, I'm gonna try and find a balance between perfectionism and just enjoying the process and then taking on board what they've said. Because if everyone had just been like, "Oh, you're amazing," and there's nothing to correct, I don't know what I do. Like, you know, make my pro debut. So I do want to make substantial improvements. And you know, honestly, as a natural competitor, I know that I can't, you know, build muscle in a deficit. I'm not gonna, you know, dramatically change how I look. But I do think I can bring maybe a different kind of energy and a better condition next time. So that's what I wanted to do.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's condition is something you can work on, of course, and the posing is such a good point as well. Like there's, as you say, there's not much you can do to build more muscle in a prep, but speaking your posing, you can enhance certain parts of your physique and hide parts if that's what you need to do. So I think that spending time working on your posing and looking to bring a little bit more condition, we will see a much improved Kojo, which is terrifying and exciting.
I hope so. We'll see. We'll see how peak week goes. No, it'll be fun. Yeah, we'll see.
Maddie will look after you, and you're very switched on yourself. So I'm sure that you're together. You're going to be quite the team. So Supernaturals is a plan. Thinking about Boston, maybe.
Honestly, it's a yes from me. It's a Simon Cowell yes from me. I really do want to do it. I'm still in a bit of shock because, you know, I got the email from Steph today about it as well. And I don't know. I just feel like they're going to, and I have to apply for my pro card. So I'll do that probably next week. And I just feel like people are going to come knocking on my door and take everything away because I'm not quite. I think my mind is still kind of catching up because it does mean so much to me. But yeah, I would love to do Boston. And I think obviously, you know, being part of a team that is represented in the UK would be a tremendous honor, but it'll be a really fun learning experience for me. And I do think it would mature me as not only an athlete, but a person as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Well, I hope it all works. I hope everything lines up and you go to Boston. It's we talked about the first timers show day experience and stuff. Hopefully you're going to have the same level of camaraderie and sportsmanship at
Sure. Yeah.
Supernaturals. I
Yeah.
know the men's physique pros in the UK are
Unreal.
fantastic. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
brilliant, like a
Unreal.
bunch of guys. But and I know that you'll have been reaching out to the European contingent as well already. I know that you're fantastic at the networking. So I think that it's going to be a great pro show. And even from a backstage perspective, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Right.
imagine going to Worlds and meeting all these people that you've been chatting to on bodybuilding.com.
I think I'm gonna like faint. I think I'm gonna faint on stage if certain people show up. I will give a very I don't know, 1800s Japanese shogun bow, and I will just faint. I will not compete this year. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it's the human side of our sport, and I think our federation that I'm enjoying the most right now. I mean, I'm still enjoying my training and all that stuff. I think it's kind of lit a fire under my ass, and that I feel more motivated to do the things that I've always been doing. But what takes the edge off, I think, is just the people and remembering that at the end of the day, we're all individuals, and connecting with people in a friendly way and not just trying to get something out of it. Because, yeah, it's a very, I feel like it's a very community-based federation, which is what I'm getting.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. You sound like me. That's what happened. I did one show and I got sucked in, and here I am 3 years
And
later,
yeah,
hosting
and
a podcast.
you went to Worlds and you did amazing, and you did all that stuff. So you've
Yeah.
been immersed in it for so long.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the federation sucks you in. You do one show and then here you are.
Here we are. So
Later.
everyone is so damn nice. It's like
Everyone's too nice. Yeah.
I want them to treat me the way they treated me at my first job. Just like
Yeah.
get me coffee and just throw the trophy at me. Like I don't know. But
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. No, sadly, we're all far too lovely for that. You're in the family now. Well, Kojo, thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
again to record this. It's been lovely to chat to you. Is there
Thank you.
anything
Thank you.
else that you want to call out or talk about before we wrap up?
Uh, the only thing that came to mind is a private message for CNP to never stop making the proto, because
Yeah.
I got a ton of that stuff after the first show, and like, oh my God, every single person who came to my apartment who tried some just like absolutely hooked. I mean, I know people, I've come across people who just like order this, who don't train, who are not interested in any of this stuff, like, not even remotely, who order their products in bulk just because of how they taste. So I hope the WNBF keeps giving out CNP related products for all eternity, and that all new competitors can understand the joy that is CNP proto flapjack flavor. So yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. So wait, what was your flavor of choice then? What did you get?
I got the Chocomel
Yeah.
something, I can't remember.
Oh,
That
it's
was
so good.
absolutely nuts. Like I'm pretty illegal. And then I got the flapjack, the pink flapjack flavor thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they messed me up. It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. I think on show day I ate like 16, which was crazy, but here we are. We're still
Here
alive.
we go. We're alive. No, I feel you on it. They're the best. But afterwards, I'll get your address. I'll get you sent some.
Thank you. That would honestly make my month. I think I'll have a nervous breakdown opening the box.
Okay, we'll sort that out. We'll sort that out for you. You can save it for after show day though.
Thank you. That'll be tough. I'm not gonna lie, that will be tough. I may factor them into like the daily macros. We'll see.
Yeah, that's maybe your off-plan meal, like a
Exactly.
whole box of C&P Taco Bell protein
Be
bars.
miserable when they finish. Yeah.
All right, Kojo, thank you so much. It's
Yeah.
been so lovely to chat to you. I know that everyone's going to get lots from this episode. Our registrations are open for our Supernaturals Open Finals on the 6th of October. So if you're listening, don't sit about, get yourself registered and in with a chance to hopefully join Kojo in the Boston team with representing the UK. And again, a big thank you to C&P, who are our headline sponsor. We couldn't do what we do without you guys. And we're going to be back in a few weeks with the next episode of the WNBF UK podcast. But until then, thank you all for listening.
Check out CNP, our sponsors, and sign up for our events at WNBFUK.com.